Oh, we might actually be good here. Let's see. We have our fearless moderator, Magnus. Thank you for joining us. And I think you're just missing one here. Let's see. And there he is.
Missing Lou, I think.
He is on Speaker Island. Well, listen, thank you all. This is a really interesting conversation and very important for the industry because we need to protect our revenues, right? For this evolving and not really nascent industry anymore in terms of OTT and different distribution channels. So Magnus, take it away, please, with introductions.
Thank you, Brian. My name is Magnus Svensson. I work as an independent media specialist from a company called Iwin Technology, based out of sunny, warm, nice Stockholm, Sweden. And I will be hosting this panel with pirate hunters. So, and I encourage you all to answer questions or sending questions in the question and answer, and I will keep my right eye on that a little bit and see if I can sneak those questions into the panel while we're talking. But to start with, I would like to go around the table and introduce or let the panelist or pirate hunter introduce themselves. So in my screen, I have Alastair first. So please go ahead, Alastair.
Yeah, hi everyone. Very nice to meet you. My name is Alastair Campbell, and I work for GeoGuard as our commercial and product marketing manager. So I kind of look after everything we do in the OTT world, and you know, you can really think of us as geolocation fraud specialists. So interested to share my views and hear what everyone else's views are on the topic.
Thank you, Alastair. Abigail.
Hi. I'm Abigail Gutman. I'm with Cinemedia. I'm Vice President of Intelligence and Security Operations and a nice anti-piracy hacking tracking team there.
Hacking tracking team. Olga.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining our panel. My name is Olga Kornienko. I am one of the founders and CEO of EasyDRM. We are the original DRM as a service specialist company.
Thank you. And Pascal.
Hello, I'm Pascal Metral. I work for Nagra Vision. I'm in charge of the anti-piracy litigation, investigation, and intelligence team chasing the pirates.
And finally, Lou.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me and thanks for joining today. I'm Lou Bolden. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Verimatrix. Verimatrix provides conditional access, DRM, multi-DRM, authentication, and application security products for the media and entertainment space, also provide app shielding and device shielding in many other verticals, including fintech, for end-to-end security all the way from content origination to distribution and through the applications themselves.
Excellent, thank you. With this panel, I think the pirates should be a bit scared, to be honest. Some facts that I collected from the pirate hunters here is that subscription IPTV piracy is a $1 billion US business. And it's quite impressive figures. And about 23 million US citizens consume this form of piracy. So, and the profit margin is quite scary. It's up to 85% for the pirates. So it's a lucrative business for the pirates at this stage. So, and this is US figures, but I would say that's about the same in Europe. So maybe you, Pascal, want to comment on these figures a bit?
Yeah, and this is nothing compared to the losses that it causes to the industry. This $1 billion figure, which is included in the report Money for Nothing we put together with the Digital Citizen Alliance, really speaks about subscription-based IPTV piracy, so streaming if you want, paid for piracy. And it's also just a part of what you find out there as piracy. Website piracy is another form of piracy. Application piracy is another form of piracy. And you name it, credential sharing is another form of piracy. So it's a very just one billion among many others out there. Also, I think the numbers are, or the figures are maybe telling, but also what he's telling is how easy it is today or nowadays for people to set up their own pirate structure, their own pirate service. You have turnkey solutions for anybody. You don't need to be tech savvy for this. And I think it's the right time for us in the industry to tackle this seriously. We still have a lot of things that our consumers, our clients, our TV operators, clients, or content owners can use, but it's now time to federate and to fight it.
Maybe we should clarify the different type of pirates we have out there. Maybe can you all shortly explain what type of piracy we have out there to fight?
Well, there's I think there's a lot of different types of piracy. And part of it, and I think Abigail can talk more about the credential theft and that type of piracy. But there is a lot of piracy that starts with people just taking somebody else's stream and rebroadcasting it and making money off of it, or types of piracy where you take somebody else's ad-driven stream and pull advertising out of it, or stick new advertising, different advertising into it. Is obviously a whole different other set of piracy. Abigail, you want to add on with the credential sharing as well?
I mean, I think the way we look at it, it's in the media, is that we look at, the piracy of service, the piracy of the content, and then what we call competing piracy, where actually the pirate setup is just like a legitimate OTT operator setup. So the service piracy is, in the old days of pay TV, old, it's not so old, I guess. The service was protected with CA, and we've got, we're a CA provider, so is Nagra, Verimatrix. And then a hack of the CA would have been a way to steal the service. And today with OTT, I think the theft of credentials, right? So I'm not talking about the sharing of credentials, which is a different issue and is a business issue to many OTT providers. I'm actually talking about, those massive leaks of credentials into the dark web, where they then get nicely filtered and prepared for sale, and the whole credential fraud ecosystem that is created around that. And that is actually piracy of the service, right? Piracy of the content is, Olga, what you were talking about, where you take the stream, you either take it from, you take it from an HDMI, from a device. We're now seeing, apropos hacking tracking, we're seeing hackers providing scripts to actually steal the content directly from legitimate CDNs, and even maybe strip DRM from those. So that's another way of content piracy, right? Where you steal the content and stream it onwards. And of course, the worst, I think, for the industry or for service providers is the IPTV pirate networks that are set up just like a legitimate network, right? Where it either comes as an APK or even with an end device, a nice media player with a beautiful program guide, with catch-up TV, with a huge VOD library, and with all the live sports and all the live entertainment at linear channels as well. So those are that's how we divide the different types of piracy. And we think that for each, there needs to be technological solutions. And of course, there needs to be kind of a joint effort on the education and legal action that is taken around these.
The other interesting thing to add about the last one that you mentioned is that they're so very well set up, so sophisticated that most people who don't know enough about the industry can't really tell the difference. When you, as Abigail mentioned, you get a device. Why would anybody think that's wrong? You pay a credit card, you get a device, sounds legitimate, right? But a lot of them, if they ask you to pay, I don't know, $10 a month and get everything, is obviously not legitimate.
Might be good to be true there.
Is to do about that.
Yeah. And so, something I'd throw in the ring as well, talking to those points around like the piracy of the service and the platform, is like the geo-piracy angle as well, and how people are using services like VPNs, which claims to be about protecting people's privacy online, but are really about unlocking access to content. Is that we've seen actually, I think this year more than before, that to Abigail's point about the theft of credentials, that those providers who are then reselling those credentials are partnering up with VPNs, because often they're selling credentials to a service in a particular area of the world, might be access to a US service, but they're obviously trying to sell that to the whole globe. So they'll do like a partnership with a VPN to say, you get access to the credentials and you get the VPN to spoof the service.
One of the things you have to look at with piracy, though, is why. Why do the consumers buy those devices that are $10 or subscribe to that service? And oftentimes we overlook that it has to do with ease of access, the ability to get the content you want when you want it, which is challenging with the current licensing schemes. And so how do we as security experts make it secure, but also easier to access all of that content in a secure manner as we shift to this, global delivery method that's moving away from closed networks, and that's the only place that can get the content. So something we have to look at is not just the folks that are pirating, but why are they buying? Is it because it's cheaper? Is it because it's easier to access?
You're talking about demotivating the different players in this chain of access to content, and I think that is the common mission for all of us, you need to demotivate the end user who's viewing the pirated content by making it an unreasonable or just not good viewing experience. You need to demotivate the pirate, which means you basically do need to get into his pockets, right? You need to understand what is it that's motivating him. And I think Pascal mentioned, it's a multi-billion-dollar business, and so that's clear, right? What the motivation there is. And so I think, and I saw Pascal making a skeptical face when Olga, you mentioned that that many people just think that this is a legitimate service. While I agree that there are those who think it's a legitimate service, there's no excuse for that anymore, right? I think there is increasing exposure to legal action. There's increasing campaigns for educating people about what is what is a pirate service and what isn't a pirate service. And we just recently did a study as well on sports piracy that showed that even that of sports fans, we did it with Ampere, 6,000 sports fans, avid sports fans were interviewed, and of those sports fans, 80% would get a pirate sports subscription, right? In addition to having whatever other pay TV they have. So Lou, to your point, why are they doing this? We can say, viewing habits are changing. COVID might have helped this. The fact that people are home more, the fact that they've gotten used to watching on multiple screens or big screens rather than going to the stadium. For whatever reasons, the user behaviors are changing and enabling this. And I don't think for a minute that those sports fans who have a legitimate subscription and are, topping that with a pirate subscription for their sporting events, I don't think for a minute that they don't know what they're doing is wrong. I think they know.
I think it's a great point. Sorry, go ahead, Magnus, please.
Pascal, how do these pirates find the streams? Because I worked with a customer, they had a live stream coming up, and just minutes afterwards it was available, and no commercials around it. It just popped up in a pirate site. How do they find all these things?
Yeah, so first, the piracy is very resilient. It is set up, the pirate infrastructure is set up to resist to a lot of different countermeasures that providers could take or media right holders could take, and this is really by design resilience to take downs and things like this. And again, one factor is a piece of cake to find content. You Google it, you find it. You Bing it, you find it. You whatever search engine it, you find it, right? You have devices, pirate devices set up to find streams after streams after streams once they are taken off. So this is really something that we need to fight against. It's really a piece of cake, both to supply. I was talking about turnkey solutions to provide streams to anybody, but also to consume. And I think us security vendors, our duty is to try to combat both the supply side and the demand side. And I think on the supply side, and this is also, by the way, a big difference versus the music industry, and what the music industry has suffered over time. We have the luxury here in the audio video industry to actually have set-top boxes, to have devices, to have actually agents located at the client side where we can actually put security features in. We can have threat tracing, watermarking technologies that enable to identify the leakage of any form of content and neutralize it, deactivate it. This is really something that we have out there. It's on the shelf. We just need to use it. We have threat tracing technologies in conditional access systems as well. So it's just out there. Just let's just use it. I think this is the big advantage we have versus other industries such as the music industry, because it is so easy to consume that we have really to use technology to make a difference and to make it harder, if not to find the service, at least to find the stream that you are interested in.
You were about to comment before.
Well, what I was going to say and look at here, when we look at why people pirate, and there's many different stages of life that people go through, but oftentimes it's not because they aren't willing to pay for it, but the accessibility of it is challenging. And we can use sports as a really, really great example for somebody that pays for a service to subscribe and watch their favorite team. And I'll use, because it's football season in the United States right now, I'll use that as a very concrete example. We still have some not antiquated, that's the wrong term, some legacy business models where sports is blacked out in a certain region for a paying subscriber. And that paying subscriber then doesn't have the ability to watch their sports team at their home or even when they're traveling because of OTT or on a different device, even though they're paying. And this is really an authorization and authentication issue tied in with what Alastair does from a geolocation standpoint to how do you actually authenticate that subscriber. And with password sharing or password theft, it puts that at risk. So because even with two-factor authentication, you can say, hey, let me send the code to somebody, or you can take that. So how do you make that experience and secure it in another way so that paying subscriber can then watch what they want to watch? The revenue can go for not only the subscription service, but all the advertising that goes beyond that, because that's really where the driver is. So how can we as security companies add additional layers of authentication of those users so that we can expand that reach? And that will also require the content owners to change their models and look at it in a different light.
Alastair?
I was actually thinking about the same exact thing, but from remember when we all used to travel for business perspective, and you fly out to a different country and you try to watch the TV show you would normally watch because it's Thursday and it just came out or whatever, you can't because you're in a geographical region that is not allowed to view the streaming service. Why can't we? Same kind of approach as Lou just mentioned. I think there has to be some sort of a incentive for people to be able to view this content without being stuck in, I'm abroad and I can't watch this, but all of my friends are talking about it type of a situation. So this is where I can imagine people trying to hack the system and go, well, I should be able to watch it, so why can't I? And that, I guess, goes to rights and more of not the tech side of the industry, but more of the right side of the industry to figure out how to combat that, make that less of an issue for people who travel all over the world.
I was hoping that Alastair can fix that for us.
You raise a good point, and I think that the challenge is, and that there is obviously the regulatory side, but there is a technology element, which is, the industry relies on using a user's IP address to determine where they are, and the issue is that as you talked about things like VPNs, is that you can only determine okay, we can't trust this location. You don't know any more than that. So that's why you can't discriminate between someone who's truly in the wrong region and someone who isn't. And you can develop some kind of rules or logic that says, okay, we'll allow it for a period of time, perhaps, and things like that. But also you can rely on, you know, other sources of location information, and that's we see that in other industries being done successfully. So you have that finer information, and then you, as you say, can decide, okay, this is someone who's actually just on holiday, or is on sitting in there one evening after doing an event, versus, you know, someone who's clearly just in the wrong market or is up to no good on that platform.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is that the way the content is distributed is the way it is. Us as security vendors, I think we cannot change the fact that it is in some way distributed in a fragmented manner. It is in some way subject to exclusivity rights and things like this. I think this is the way it is. This is the way our whole industry is being driven to optimize and increase revenue. So we have to cope with that, and we have then to do with that paradigm. We will not change that paradigm, and we need to make the best out of what is out there to get it secure. Even free-to-air content is pirated. I think obviously it's not because it's free in the UK, the BBC, for example, that it can be broadcast all over the place without any authorization. So even free of charge, it gets pirated. Even Spotify, which is a very open bar, all you can eat, all you can listen type of model, gets pirated, right? Music is still being downloaded from any cyberlockers, even though you get it for nearly for half a pence out there, right? So this is also the reality, and we need to act upon.
You know,
Sorry,
it's interesting. You say that. I mean, we were not going to change the paradigm, but we've already had a paradigm shift in the way content is distributed to OTT, right? And that's going to become the prevalent consumption method here. We're always going to have satellite because that's one to many, but it's going to become a big part of how content is distributed from the content owner and originators through their distributors to those end users. And so we can change that path because it's the consumption method is the same, the end devices are the same, and we can help secure that path, including the authentication. And when we think about multi-layer authentication, you authenticate the distributor and the end user, we can help add other layers of security to it that enable the business models and the consumption methods that people want to use today. So I'm not sure I agree that we're never going to change it. I had a conversation years ago with somebody at a major global broadcaster that said we will never license content for mobile devices, and today it's everywhere. So
this goes back, Lou, to what you were saying earlier. I mean, I think that there is, and Olga as well. I think that, you know, in the old days, you could say that you travel somewhere and now you don't have access. Today, I don't know that there isn't legitimate access to every piece of content, almost every piece of content all the time. And you know, the only place where I think it is really critical is maybe sports, where you really want to see everything live. I think today, as Pascal says, the distribution of content is so fragmented and is so widely available on so many platforms, with content owners licensing to multiple distributors around the world. It's, you know, I don't know, maybe in the US, the blackout issues are still, and you know what, maybe not only in the US, you know, where I am, I don't get all the Amazon Prime content, for example, right? But the issue is that the content is there's so much content and it's available legitimately in so many places. And the fact that people still choose to pirate it is because it is made available for cheaper by people who steal the content. And I don't think we should make the mistake here of thinking, oh, it's, you know, it's on us. I think we've locked the doors. We've put technology in. We have DRM. We have conditional access. We have encryption systems. We even have chaser technologies. We've got watermarking and detection and termination and disruption. You know, how much more do you need to protect your home before it becomes okay to say that guy is a thief. He's a thief. He's stealing the content and he's distributing it with greater ease than a legitimate operator, because he's not bound to regulations and to law, and it's cheaper for him because he does not pay for the content rights. And I think that the discussion should really be, what do we do about that, right?
Exactly.
And
I was about to come to that. Now it's time to stop them. Olga, what is the most efficient way? Are they a silver bullet here, or is it a matter of many silver bullets?
It's well, if you want to call, I think it was Lou at some point that mentioned calling it an end-to-end security, if you want to call that as one big silver bomb, if you will, because it's a bunch of different approaches. And it would have to be, first of all, education, in my opinion, and making sure that companies who need to license content and need DRM for their content licenses do not just do the checkbox of, yeah, I've licensed it, I have a contract with the DRM provider, and that's where it ends, and I don't really use it. Actually do use it. They use multi-factor authentication. They do all sorts of layers of security. They also use watermarking, and they do checks against VPN and geo-blocking, but it has to be very multi-pronged approach as far as I can.
Pascal, any comments? End-to-end security, I think you mentioned that at least in our pre-discussions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the end-to-end security concept, where you believe that there's no silver bullet, so the combination of bronze bullets will make a difference. Definitely, I think this is the case. I mean, we can combine technology with legal enforcement, with education, etc. There's a lot of industry alliances that combine those few pillars to better combat piracy locally. And I think what we have out there now, we have a nice arsenal of a couple of good technologies that can detect the stolen streams, the infringing streams, and deactivate the leaking sources. So this is definitely typically watermarking, for example, forensic watermarking, client-side watermarking. You have other similar technologies, traitor tracing technologies that can be embedded in conditional access systems, and we have that. And I think this is really probably a good silver bullet. People will say it can be circumvented, it can be bypassed. Not so much if you have an active dynamic technology that basically successfully plays the cat and mouse game with the pirates that try to bypass it. So definitely, I think fighting piracy at the source is really key. Obviously, you have blocking measures. Blocking measures are more an umbrella to protect you against the rain. But if you dry up the cloud, then it won't rain, right? So, and this is definitely what we try to put forward and pitch to our clients. Definitely, the traitor tracing technologies, the watermarking technologies, that would have to be implemented. What is interesting there, it can be implemented by both content owners and broadcasters. So at all levels, you can implement your own content protection solution.
I can be the devil's advocate here because I've been in the industry for many years, and we have been talking about watermarking, and that is all these things with watermarking, DRM, and the security measures are still quite expensive and complicated. Can you defend that, or is it just me that are nasty now?
Obviously, you have different forms of watermarking. You have distribution feed watermarking. You have end device watermarking, some of which will require less efforts, integration efforts. Obviously, if you have to implement watermarking in any single end user device, it may be a cost. It may be a challenge in a way, or not. Just depending on what are the legacy devices out there. You can also implement watermarking at the server, at the header level, which makes it much easier to do. You can also embed your watermarking technology in chipsets. All new device would have it embedded in the chipsets. You just need to be activated. So it's pretty, and we're coming to that more and more. So it's not so complicated to implement. We implement it all over the place with any types of client. You don't need to be a big client, a big pay TV operator to have it implemented.
Is it the breaking point somewhere? Because yeah, it might be cheaper and it might be simpler, but it's still expensive. So where is the breaking point for making watermarking a benefit for you instead of a cost? Lou, you were raising your hand.
Abigail, I mean, maybe you want to answer this, but I don't feel that that watermarking or the technologies out there are expensive, and it's all relative to the overall cost of your video service. What it does do then when you look at that is how much revenue does it bring back into your pocket when you implement all of the proper security measures, right? Versus the cost that it has and the damage that you have to your, not only the service itself, but the entire value chain and revenue chain that's out there, including your brand, right? So you have to look at that cost. And I can just look at this from the security side of the business, having in my past life built end-to-end systems. It makes up a very, very small percentage of the overall video infrastructure cost, even if you were to add every single security product that all of us offer together. It doesn't really make up a big percentage of that cost compared to the potential revenue that it brings back into your company and your customer loyalty. And we oftentimes when we talk about security, we're focusing on the technology and how difficult it is. We also need to make sure that security is usable, security is scalable, and security is friendly.
Is it a little bit like an insurance that you think it's expensive until you need it?
Well, and also I was at an industry event where a couple of educational institutions were talking about the infrastructure that they've built for all of their online learning and how much redundant hardware and software and for sports events, bands and broadcasting equipment that they were using. And when I asked them what their infrastructure for security is, and they said, oh, we never thought about that. It's expensive, isn't it? And I kind of paused and I kind of looked at the infrastructure that they built, and I said, well, if you're going with DRM, a typical DRM provider charges by a couple of dollars, but for 1,000 licenses, it comes out to be fractions of a penny per play. And people pause, and they're like, oh, that's not really expensive. I'm like, yeah, well, somebody would rebroadcasting it afterwards and making money and basically taking everything you've made and valuing it because there's now making money off of it. Like, yeah, that's really, wow, that's not.
Alastair, any comments? Any comments around the cost and the insurance analogy I did? Do you think it's expensive until you really need it? Is it the same with protection mechanism?
Yeah, I think so. And that there are obviously spin-offs that come from some of this that you can value. On the one hand, it's a compliance thing, but there are other methods. You might have like different service offerings in certain markets, right? And you want to make sure that consumers get to the right one. But yeah, I think from the rights holders' perspective, it obviously needs to be everywhere, and they I guess are trying to juggle having their content in every market to every broadcaster, and at the same time, ensuring that they're all compliant. But yeah, I think as a whole, as an industry, we all probably make an effort, right, to ensure that we can make our services available and as reasonable to that whole spectrum as we can.
It sounds to me it might be an education issue as well here, that maybe we need, as an industry, we need to educate content owners and the industry in totally about the security. What do you say, Pascal? Is that a fair assessment?
Well, some are already fairly well educated. I mean, the studios have been promoting watermarking and other security measures for quite some time. Earlier release Windows type of businesses now impose the use of watermarking. Some of the best sports leagues also around here in Europe also should be making it mandatory to make sure that their broadcaster, their media rights holder licenses properly secure the content and can act against piracy properly. So I think we are getting there. but we still hear and listen to the market saying, okay, if that guy doesn't implement it, I will not implement it, because what's the point, right? Which is fair enough. I can understand the statements in regions where everybody distributes the same content. But at the end of the day, somebody needs to start, and somebody needs to move. And this is in some territories, we are not there yet. In some others, we're already there. Huh? So we can observe that from here, and we love to accompany our customers to have it done and to secure. As it was said before by some of us, and probably all of us, it's a joint effort that we need to do. And with regards to your comment about price, I think there are so many vendors out there right now that probably the pricing has decreased a bit, this pressure on pricing. All of us here—
maybe we can have a negotiation in this panel, because I think we're coming in a couple of questions that I would like to bring in, and that I think it's several of them mentioning blockchain. Is someone wants to comment on blockchain and that technology to help piracy? Anyone that feels—
I think
is
we
that
looked at it at some point, but didn't think that it was something that was really going to enhance our anti-piracy efforts at least at this stage. That could change. So,
but no one is working in this panel with blockchain as a technology to prevent, or actually to authenticate or prevent piracy.
We have initiatives. I mean, the Kudlewski group, Nagra Kudlewski, has a cybersecurity division. We use blockchain more on the cyber side of it, but there are discussions around it. I think right now it's more of a buzzword still. To really find proper use cases that justify the use of blockchain in the content industry, I think it's still a challenge to both find the use cases and then to industrialize it.
Yeah, I would agree. We've taken a look at it, and it depends on where you're defining security. I think with rights holders and authentication, and do you have the right to the content, it has some applications from a distributed standpoint with blockchain, but we haven't found, again, the real use case for it yet to build that out.
Another angle that is coming up, and maybe more important now in the pandemic and the situation we are, is universities and education and these type of institute that maybe are sending out everything in clear, and how can we attack that, because it is probably quite sensitive information sometimes. Olga, any comments to that?
Actually, it's kind of an interesting thing, because I ran across that personally, having taken a couple of classes in the past few months. And it was interesting. Somebody brought up a statistic that universities, I'm talking about like grad schools and whatnot, never thought they would be teaching a fully online class until year 2025, which obviously this year sped up the process by 5 years. And not only are they running into a situation where they're recording videos and everything is up for grabs, they're also, because people might actually just hack into the stream and borrow it and watch it, and now all this intellectual content is out there. But also privacy information, I think, is an interesting aspect of all of this, that in a class, people might be discussing issues that they faced in business. And if that information leaks out, that creates a completely different situation that people are not even thinking about it. Things of confidential nature and GDPR and all of that kind of stuff that I don't think some of the education institutions are even thinking about. And that was brought up in a class that I was taking, and the standard answer we got, yeah, we should think about it. But it was an interesting aspect of things that you don't even think about in the entertainment industry, how this technology can have an effect on so many other things like security and privacy and whatnot.
Yeah, the applications into other markets of the core technologies we have, from a device security, a content security, and content, it's digital, so it doesn't matter what the content is, but you have to take that down the chain more to doing the authentications in an appropriate and safe manner, securing the applications themselves, which are also a risk vector into those back-end systems, not just the content chain and the authentication chain. So it's an absolute place where it needs to be looked at, not just education, but corporate videos and all of that really, really critical, even proprietary information that's now happening on these platforms.
One thing that popped up in my head now that we haven't really prepared at all, but it was to the privacy that triggered me. What about watch parties that are now getting more and more popular? Is that a like you can do a Zoom bombing, you can do a watch party bombing and sneak into a watch party? Has that been looked into, or is it a new phenomenon?
I don't know if that's necessarily been looked into, but the other thing that's interesting about a watch party is people would be walking around with their devices and you can see stuff in the apartment. You can see stuff as to what's going on in the house, which opens up your house to a lot of other people. And especially if somebody's bumping into a watch party, they can see everything that's going on in the house, which is a whole scary security situation if you kind of pause and think about that one.
Yeah, I was thinking about this Zoom bombing thing that you can hack into a watch party and sneak in and be quiet and watch the movie in some way, but it might be a privacy issue as well with the cameras and all these things. I just want to encourage the audience to bring in questions, and while waiting on that, I will leave you guys 1 minute each to summarize some advice to the audience on how to tackle security. And let's start with Alastair.
Yeah, sure. So I think one thing that I was thinking about actually during this discussion is just on the supply side and some of the things that we've been dealing with recently is that as we've also talked about here, it's very easy to spin up a illegal IPTV solution, and those pirates are using the same technology that the real industry is. And so I think anything that can be done to tackle that. I mean, we see that these cloud hosting providers, for example, we've done a study with not just on OTT, but outside in cybersecurity, a company called Whois, and these same cloud hosting providers that work hand in hand with the VPN services that we're trying to stop, I happen to know for a fact, are also providing services to these illegal streaming services, and they happily turn a blind eye, and there's no particular KYC done when you sign up. I could literally go to one of these cloud hosting providers, so I'm not talking about the AWSs of the world, but the more unscrupulous ones, and spin up with paying a minimum of like $5 a month. So I think that's a big area we can really hit the pirates.
Abigail,
I could happy to provide a long list of these companies.
I imagine. Abigail, what's your advice or final words?
I think so. There's a couple of things. First of all, I think that security there is no silver bullet at the moment for the current streaming piracy situation, and I think the way to handle it is layered security. You have to have really good technology, but you also have to have on top of that, and the technology needs to have a good baseline of conditional access, has to have DRM and encryption, and then you also have to have the tracking, the watermarking, the forensics, so you have to have all those layers. I think the second thing that comes up that I think is extremely important is the educational issue, and it's not just educating end users, as we have end user campaigns where you see it on the screen, you're pirating at the moment. It's not that. It's about, I think, lobbying legislators to change, enhance, adapt the laws to the new technology, to protect the technologies, to protect the content. And I think that, the laws and regulations in place are between, 15 and 25 years old. And that is something that as a community, as an industry, we are not doing enough of proactively enough. So that would be the second thing that I would add. And I think that the third and final thing is that at the basis of all our work on piracy is intelligence about what the pirates are doing, what hackers are doing to enhance or enable pirates, whether it's with, enabling them to increase the streaming sources that they have, the different types, or whether it's building the tools, the peripherals that enable piracy and that are used almost exclusively for piracy. So knowing all that in great detail is what will help us as an industry actually build better technologies, improve the security technologies, but also help to change the laws and enforce them in order to ensure that the content is protected.
I think Brian wants us to round off. So Olga, Pascal, and Lou, very quick comments from you guys. Olga.
I guess my two cents to the content owners would be that as expensive as you think DRM is, or any security measure for that is, think about how much more expensive it would be to lose all of your revenue streams, because at the end of the day, DRM watermarking and everything else we do is a way to protect your revenue and to make sure your business thrives.
Pascal.
I think some people think piracy is a fatality, but it's not. We have a lot of clients throughout the world. We can see that with some of them, we can make a difference. You know, you build a comprehensive anti-piracy program, you do make a difference on your territory, on your broadcasting.
Lou, final words.
Secure all of your endpoints and make your security experience frictionless for the end users so they'll stay with your products.
Thank you. I think that was a good final words. And with that, I think I hand back to you, Brian.
Awesome job, Magnus. Once again, thank you for moderating for your second panel. Great job, speakers. I'm actually getting some text and chat saying how engaging and informative this panel was. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Great job, guys. And attendees, if you'd like to virtually applause, you can raise your blue hands and they'll all see how loved they are. Come on. Let's get it up to 20, 25 or 20, I think is the record. Oh, almost there. That's okay. A lot of great feedback there. Thank you, speakers. Stick around if you want. Just mute your video. There's a few more questions there if you want to answer those via text or chat to our attendees. Fantastic job. Thank you very much. We're going to jump right into the next session. Alastair, you're next, and you can take your full 5 minutes. We'll start a little late the next session if we have to. Okay, so take it away, Alastair. Thank you.
So yeah, I'll be speed pitching GeoGuard DB today. So just briefly about who GeoGuard is. So we are there to empower the future of digital trust. What this means is that really anywhere that companies are using primarily location information to make some type of a rule-based decision or similar, we are taking that location information, whether it's IP address or more precise location information off the user device, like GPS, Wi-Fi triangulation, and kind of scrubbing that for fraud, and sort of allowing those organizations to make more informed rules-based decisions ultimately. So you know, on one hand, within OTT, what that means is we're helping broadcasters to flag IP addresses that belong to IP spoofing solutions, such as VPNs, Tor, etc., that can be used to you know, spoof geolocation logic. And I should add on that point, you know, we work directly with broadcasters ourselves, and we also are partnered with some of the major sort of CDNs and other vendors in the space, including Akamai and AWS. A little bit on our history, because I think it's relevant to the story. So we started out, we do all the geolocation compliance for the US regulated sports betting and iGaming markets, where you know, as regulation is very serious, operators could go to jail if they fall foul of the Wire Act and other rules. So we're there to kind of create this whole suite. And a subset of that was, you know, we need to, again, flag IP addresses that belong to spoofing technologies. We didn't see anything in the market, so we created our own GeoGuard DB, and that's how we got to where we are today. So within the OTT market, you know, really, at its core, what we're doing is we're helping broadcasters who are licensing premium content to comply with the requirements of the owners of that content, as I said, to make sure that content is broadcast in the regions that it's licensed to be. And we aim to do that on one hand, obviously having the highest compliance, or be as compliant as we can, and then also minimizing the impact, like the kind of like fallout, right, that could happen with your real users being flagged accidentally. There are some other advantages that our customers take advantage of. So, you know, if you have AVOD in one market SVOD in another, then again, you don't want users being able to use VPNs to flip from one to the other. If you have AVOD again, you are often held to invalid IVT, so invalid IP traffic. So you don't want, again, to be serving too many ads to IPs that belong to these types of solutions, because you'll have you might face revenue being clawed back. And thirdly, we have a kind of material impact on general content piracy and other forms of fraud that OTT broadcasters tend to see. And again, that's just by being able to filter out traffic that these types of individuals will use to try to do that. So in terms of an ROI hit, it's quite clear. If you want to be broadcasting premium content and you want that on your platform, you need this type of protection. And also, if you have these types of other ways of creating revenue, you need to be able to uphold them. And you know what? It really works. So VPNs spend a lot of time marketing quite aggressively, not about privacy, but about trying to unlock OTT content. And therefore, when we're doing our job, and I collected these in the last week or so, the users of those VPNs are clearly very unhappy. And final slide here. So in terms of the why customers choose us, there are really kind of three things that we talk about: the quality of our underlying data, the ease of access to it, and also the support that we provide. So we have our own unique collection methodologies, as I touched on at the beginning. We ourselves operate in a highly regulated market, so we need the quality to be excellent. And we're Hollywood Studio approved, third-party verified, so that we're kind of on the one hand being compliant and not stopping false positives. And we like to say API to Akamai, any way that our customers want to use us, we're there for them. And finally, yes, support. We are our own customer, so we need to provide that not only internally, but we roll that out to our other customers as well. Across, we have teams across the world. So thank you very much. Feel free to reach out, solutions@geoguard.com if you'd like to learn more. And just remember, every vote counts.
Yeah, it does. Thank you, Alastair. That was fantastic. And I know in one of our prep calls, someone was complaining that you're the guys that keep you from watching your favorite content back home when you're overseas in some other country. And I think it's it was funny, but it's really important. We need to safeguard all these major investments and these revenues, right? Otherwise, we don't really have an industry.
Absolutely.
So, and we're going to talk more about piracy tomorrow.